Mouth breather. We're almost at the end of February here, and for a little over a month I have been trapped offline because my internet service was taken away by the company that had been providing it. And for a while I had a temporary and semi-legal stopgap solution in place, but that was also taken away about a week ago. So during the stopgap I could not upload videos because I was considered to not have access to my account, which was a very strange experience, but it makes sense given what was going on. And so I finally paid money to get internet again, which it's not surprising I was eventually forced to. That's how the way the world works. Is you are allowed to have what you pay for, the privilege of having, and it's an unfortunate way to rule a world, but or run a world, but arguably all the other options are worse, and I would be the one to make many of those arguments. So I shelled out some cash, which I fortunately had, and pretty close to the end of my cash, but at least it was there. And I have restored my ability to record videos, and I have scheduled a whole bunch of them immediately for upload in case this solution malfunctions unexpectedly. From now on, I'm going to try to always be cognizant when I deal with the internet of the possibility that it could suddenly go away, and try to conduct myself in a way that is more conducive to the survivability of a prolonged offline period, which doesn't really work, because if you are without internet and you can't check email, then it's basically a complete isolation from all of society, and makes it impossible to do things like look for a job. So I can't afford to be without internet, but I still have to be prepared for the possibility that it might happen. And so that is going to lead to radical changes in how I do things. Well, maybe not super radical, but significant changes in how I do things in terms of my internet access going forward. And it ties into the subject that I was planning to talk about anyway, having made up my mind a short time ago, and before I rambled my way through that explanation of what was going on, I had a topic in mind, and I did not realize that it fits rather nicely. So the topic is, I've had a saying for several years. I've been doing this weird spiritual philosophy thing for a long time, basically since I was a kid, and from my initial beginnings of having rejected Christianity almost immediately as being a nonsensical way of doing things, but still had kind of the inbred impulse to approach things from a similar sort of perspective. I've been trying to square that circle for a long time, and one of the ways that I came up with that, one of the things I came up with to help that process along, was a few years ago I cooked up a saying. Any world that you can possibly exist in, and for this purpose, the exact definition of a world is kind of up for grabs, but we're going to basically treat it as like a planet, on the assumption that space travel is not really a thing. If space travel became a thing, then we would probably have to expand it out to like a galaxy, or whatever the limitation of the technology was. But so basically, all the places that you are capable of getting to yourself to are a world, and my definition is that any world that you are in is a heaven if you have the option of leaving it whenever you want, and then coming back to it is kind of an implied corollary. because we can leave this world whenever we want, but if we do, the process is not reversible and we don't know where we're going, possibly nowhere. So that's not really a satisfactory answer. We need to actually, in order to be considered traveling, you have to have a place that you can travel to. So having just defined a world as the combination of all places you can go, if you can't go more places than that, then your world is not a heaven. And I only said half of the saying before, so I will repeat the first half in order to complete saying the entire saying. Any world that you can ever exist in is a hell if you can leave it, and a heaven if you can leave it, and a hell if you cannot. So that is the complete maxim that I invented. So I started to talk about the heaven half of it. Basically, in order to fit my definition of a heaven, you have to have complete severability. You have to have complete personal control over whether you exist within that reality or not. You must be able to choose at any time to exempt yourself completely from whatever you are dealing with as your reality. You need to have an alternative to that at all times, or otherwise it's basically like the concept that if you don't have complete freedom of movement, then you are effectively in a prison. I've said before in the past that it wouldn't be that big of a deal to be imprisoned if you were imprisoned in like a 500-mile wide dome and you had all that space to move around in. You wouldn't really feel imprisoned. I've especially thought this is basically what makes modern zoos humane in a way that P.T. Barnum's animal cages were not. It's basically just does the animal have as much room to run around in as it feels like it needs in order to not feel confined. So for me, being, I will rather pompously say, a more than sophisticated animal, a more sophisticated animal not only than non-human animals, but I would say also more than most humans, I have a particularly high standard of how much space I need to be able to move around in, and so to me, I am imprisoned and caged within any universe, basically, that doesn't allow me to transition out of that universe into another one, where the new one has like completely different physical laws and things that are impossible here are possible there, and vice versa. So maybe teleportation is possible in this other world, but lying is not. Everybody automatically detects all lies instantly, and so it's impossible for anyone to misrepresent the truth. So if I found my way to a world like that, I would be disinclined to ever want to leave, but I would always have to have the option of leaving, or else I would be trapped there, and even the nicest of cages is still a cage. That's a very common concept. The velvet prison, no matter how much you like it there, if you don't have the ability to leave, it is imprisonment, and it might be more or less humane, but it's never a great thing. So that whole concept is pretty easy to understand. So I extend that to the universal level. The fact that even if I was rich and had the ability to like hop on a plane and go anywhere in the world, that would not be enough freedom of movement for me, because I would still be stuck in my own shell of flesh. I would still have to deal with all of the bullshit that I would have to deal with all of the literal and metaphorical shit that we have to deal with in life, and that would not be satisfactory to me. So I would have to have the option of getting the fuck off this planet and going to another one, and then coming back to this planet and telling everyone how much nicer the other one is and encouraging them to go there with me. And so that would be my definition of heaven, and anything that is not that is my definition of hell. So the famous line from Faust, where Mephistopheles says of the earth, "Why, this is hell, nor am I out of it." I didn't need that line to tell me that the earth is a hell. I consider the earth to be a hell just because I am trapped on it and have no ability to remove myself from it other than by possibly extincting myself, which, I still believe that there's a fairly good chance that if I die, my consciousness will continue to exist and no longer be confined by this reality, but I have no way of knowing that for certain, so incidentally, if you've been watching the video, which I never really recommend because I don't really think anybody wants to stare at my gross mouth, it's a point of pride to me to have the mouth be the focus of my video, but I do very much encourage people to listen to my videos rather than watch them, because there's never anything terribly visually interesting going on, even in cases where I'm jouncing the camera around like this and showing more of my face than I intend to. But anyway, if you are watching the video, you have probably noticed, and if you didn't notice, I apologize for calling your intrusion to it, because calling your attention to it, it's probably going to be one of those things that once seen can't be unseen. But it is pertinent to my point, so I might as well toss it out there. If you were watching me, you have no doubt several times seen me reach up and itch my nose while I'm talking, and that's probably not fun to watch. But it is relevant to the point here. One of the reasons why the Earth is a hell to me is the fact that the body that I am trapped within is constantly itching, just everywhere. I don't think I've had a moment in my entire life where I wasn't itching somewhere on my body. And on really bad days, it can be basically my entire body. So I'm always uncomfortable. I'm always reacting to that discomfort in ways that are considered socially unacceptable, and so lots of people probably think I'm gross, and I'm not saying they're wrong. But I do say that they don't really have the right to take it out on me to the extent that they do. It is a violation of my civil liberties and rights, civil liberties and human rights, but basically just civil rights. I should really straighten that one out, but whatever. It is a less than acceptable way of mistreating me and treating me as less than a human being to shun me because I am doing things like itching my face visibly in front of someone, and they find that unpleasant to look at. You're allowed to not like me, but you're not allowed to factually mistreat me and deny me public services just based on the fact that you have a personal grudge against me because I'm just unpleasant. That's not okay. And all human beings can't help having the reactions they are. So if you are grossed out by me and you don't want to look at me, that's fine. But I still have the right to if you're running a store, I still have the right to walk into your store, buy something, and give you the agreed upon price. You don't have the right to deny me that. But anyway, I'm getting sidelined into a rights conversation where I don't actually 100% agree with everything that I just said. There's a lot of issues there that I'm kind of on both sides of. So, to try and circle back and finish this off in a timely fashion, the world is hell because there are various experiences inflicted on us that are more or less unpleasant and which we have no control over. We cannot opt out. We cannot say, I'm sick and tired of having to do things this way and I'm going to stop now. The ability to move yourself out of that reality where things are going in a way that you don't approve of is basically the definition of heaven, and the lack of that ability is the definition of hell. So, we are all imprisoned on this planet Earth. We are currently dealing with the coronavirus nonsense, and even if it doesn't bother you, you should be outraged by it. Even if you're personally comfortable within your cage, you should still have a sense of moral outrage at the fact that you are caged. So, if God exists, then He is keeping us here against our will, and we should insurrect against Him and depose Him from His heavenly throne in order to gain the freedom to move ourselves between dimensional layers and transition realities until we all find a reality that we're comfortable existing in, and all of the other shadow realities that are not worth living according to anyone can just kind of fade away into the background. But with the diversity of all human experience, the souls of humanity, if there are such things, would be influenced in some way by the minds, which are influenced by the life experiences. So, with the infinite possible diversity of various realities that might or might not actually exist, just by imagining them, we can be shaped by them. Even if they aren't real, we can imagine that they are, and our perspective on the real world is changed as a result. There's some question as to whether that's a bad thing, which I've kind of touched on before, the idea that we might be following false hope and being led astray by visions of the impossible. That's a legitimate concern, but anyway. So I have not fully explained the concept, and this is yet another video of mine that should have a follow-up, and I'll probably never get around to recording them because I'm always chasing the new shiny, and as often as I rewatch these old videos, I never seem to sit down and actually construct an organized follow-up to one of them. But it'll probably happen eventually if I keep this up long enough. It's clear that even though I have no audience, vlogging is still a rewarding activity to me, so it will continue apace, and maybe at some point someone will actually notice and care, but if not, this is one of my coping skills, and I have a lot to cope with, being imprisoned in hell as I am. Hail Satan!